Just before today's programme, to let you know if you missed the last part of the vinyl collection, part 6, you can check it out here on the channel. And now, here on AMTV, it's time for part 7 of the vinyl collection, and this time, we're taking a look at what we own from the movies. Walt Disney's Fantasia, originally recorded in 1940, this is a reissue. Rodgers and Hammerstein's South Pacific, the movie, from 1958. Music from Ben-Hur from 1958. Music from the film of West Side Story from 1961. The original soundtrack recording from Lawrence of Arabia from 1962. The original soundtrack album from Dr. Zhivago from 1965. Rodgers and Hammerstein's The Sound of Music, the film score, from 1965. Music from the motion picture soundtrack of 2001, A Space Odyssey, from 1968. Songs as performed in the motion picture, Easy Rider, from 1969. Original soundtrack recording from the film Friends by Elton John, from 1970. Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange, from 1971. That'll Be the Day, songs from the film, or based on the film, from 1973. Songs from the film American Graffiti, from 1973. Sunshine, original soundtrack, from 1974. That's Entertainment, music from the film, from 1974. Saturday Night Fever, original movie soundtrack, from 1977. Grease, original soundtrack, from 1978. Edward and Mrs. Simpson, TV soundtrack, from 1978. The War of the Worlds, Jeff Wayne's musical version, from 1978. Flash Gordon, original soundtrack, from 1980. Chariots of Fire, the original soundtrack, from 1981. The Kids from Fame, from 1982. The Kids from Fame Again, from 1982. Gandhi, original motion picture soundtrack, from 1982. Dinah, original motion picture soundtrack, from 1982. Flashdance, original soundtrack, from 1983. The Woman in Red, original motion picture soundtrack, from 1984. Against All Odds, motion picture soundtrack, from 1984. 1984, music by Eurythmics, from 1984. Footloose, original soundtrack, from 1984. Chess, original soundtrack, from 1985. Rocky IV, original motion picture soundtrack, from 1985. Les Miserables, the Broadway album, from 1985. The Phantom of the Opera, original London cast, from 1986. Top Gun, the original motion picture soundtrack, from 1986. Dirty Dancing, the original soundtrack, from 1987. Who's That Girl, the original motion picture soundtrack, from 1987. Buster, the original motion picture soundtrack, from 1988. When Harry Met Sally, music from the motion picture, from 1989. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, music from the film, from 1990. Days of Thunder, music from the motion picture, from 1990. Havana, music from the motion picture, from 1990. The Beatles, Yellow Submarine soundtrack, and this release came from around 1999. The Snowman, originally released in 1982, though this is a reissue from around 2016. Doctor Who, The Five Doctors, the original television soundtrack, recorded in 1983, released in 2018. Dr. No, original motion picture soundtrack, from 1962. From Russia with Love, original soundtrack, from 1963. Goldfinger, original soundtrack, from 1964. You Only Live Twice, original soundtrack, from 1967. On Her Majesty's Secret Service, original soundtrack, from 1969. Diamonds Are Forever, original soundtrack, from 1971. Live and Let Die, original soundtrack, from 1973. The Man with the Golden Gun, original soundtrack, from 1974. The Spy Who Loved Me, original soundtrack, from 1977. Moonraker, original soundtrack, from 1979. For Your Eyes Only, original soundtrack, from 1981. Octopussy, original soundtrack, from 1983. A View to a Kill, original soundtrack, from 1985. The Living Daylights, original soundtrack, from 1987. License to Kill, original soundtrack, from 1989. James Bond 007 13 original themes from 1983. Well, that does bring us to a close this evening on AMTV. We do hope you enjoyed the programme, and please do keep your eyes open for brand new content that will be coming to you soon. Until then, have a very good week, and we hope that you join us again soon. Good night.